He received a message from his future self, face screaming in fear. At exactly 2:13 a.m., Daniel's phone suddenly vibrated on the nightstand. Half asleep, he reached for it and saw a message from an unknown number. "Daniel, don't open the front door tomorrow." Confused, he stared at the screen and wondered who could possibly be sending him such a strange warning. Before he could reply, another message appeared. "I know you think this is a joke. It isn't," Daniel quickly typed. "Who is this?" The response came almost instantly. "It's you." Daniel laughed nervously, thinking someone was playing a cruel prank. Then another message arrived. "You're wearing a gray shirt. There's a coffee cup beside your bed. And you still have the scar on your left hand from when you were 12. Daniel looked around his room. Everything was exactly as the message described. His heart began beating faster. He typed, "How do you know all this?" The reply shocked him. "Because I'm writing to you from August 24th, 2031. Daniel stared at the date on his phone. 5 years in the future. It sounded impossible, but then the unknown number sent him a photograph. The picture showed an older version of Daniel standing inside what looked like his apartment. His hair was streaked with gray, his face looked tired, and a long scar ran across his eyebrow. Daniel zoomed in and recognized the room immediately. It was his home. Then another message arrived. "You have 6 days. Daniel's fingers trembled as he asked, "What happens in 6 days?" The answer appeared after several seconds. "You die." Daniel stopped breathing. He immediately called the number, but it rang once before disconnecting. He tried again and again, but nobody answered. That night, Daniel barely slept. By morning, he had convinced himself that someone had hacked his phone and was trying to scare him. But at 8:07 a.m., another message arrived. "Don't go to work today." Daniel ignored the warning for several minutes, but something inside him made him stay home. Soon afterward, his boss called and told him that there had been a serious accident in the parking garage. A concrete beam had collapsed exactly where Daniel normally parked his car. Daniel sat frozen on his couch. His hands began to shake as he looked at the message again. A few minutes later, another text arrived. "Now you believe me," Daniel typed. "Tell me what happens next." His future self replied, "I can't tell you everything. If you change too much, I may never become the person sending these messages." Over the next few days, the mysterious messages continued. His future self warned him not to take the subway at 6:40, and later Daniel discovered that the train had suffered a dangerous mechanical failure. Another message told him to avoid a blue car following him through the city. Minutes later, the car crashed at an intersection. Every warning seemed impossible until it happened. Daniel became convinced that the person texting him really knew the future. But the messages also became darker and more desperate. On the 5th night, Daniel received a message that simply said, "Tomorrow is the most important day of your life." Daniel immediately asked what would happen, but there was no answer. He waited for hours, staring at his phone. Finally, at midnight, another message appeared. "Whatever you do, don't trust the man who knocks at your door." Daniel's blood ran cold. At that exact moment, someone knocked 3 times on his apartment door. Daniel stood completely still. Another 3 knocks followed, louder than before. He slowly walked toward the window and looked outside. A strange man wearing a black coat stood on the sidewalk. He was holding a photograph in one hand. Daniel immediately grabbed his phone and typed, "Who is he?" His future self answered, "He's the reason I'm sending these messages." Daniel asked, "Is he going to kill me?" There was a long pause. Then the reply appeared, "Not exactly." Before Daniel could ask anything else, the man outside suddenly looked directly toward the window and smiled. Daniel stepped away from the glass. His phone vibrated again. A photograph had arrived. It showed the same mysterious man standing beside Daniel's older self. Behind them was a large clock displaying 2:13 a.m. Daniel stared at the picture in horror, because that was the exact time when the first message had arrived. Then another message appeared. "You need to leave the apartment now." Daniel grabbed his jacket and moved toward the door, but suddenly every light in the apartment went out. His phone was the only source of light. Then a message appeared. "Daniel, I'm sorry." Daniel quickly typed, "Why?" The response came almost immediately. "Because I lied to you." Daniel's heart sank. He asked, "What did you lie about?" The next message changed everything. "I'm not your future self." Daniel stared at the screen in complete disbelief. Before he could type another question, another message arrived. "I'm your future son." Daniel's face went pale. He didn't have children. He had never even been married. He typed, "That's impossible." The reply came, "I know. That's why I'm trying to save you." Daniel asked why his future son was contacting him from 5 years ahead. The answer was terrifying. "Because 6 days from now, you make a decision that destroys everything." Suddenly, someone knocked on the door again. Daniel froze. He looked through the peephole, but the hallway was empty. His phone vibrated one final time. "Don't open the door." Daniel stepped backward. Then he heard a voice from the other side whisper his name. It sounded exactly like his own voice. "Daniel, open the door." Daniel covered his mouth in fear. Then the voice continued. "You already know what happens next." Daniel slowly turned toward the window. The mysterious man in the black coat was gone. The street was completely empty. He looked back at his phone. A final message had appeared. "Look under your bed." Daniel didn't want to obey, but something forced him to move. He dropped to the floor and reached underneath the bed. His fingers touched something cold and hard. He pulled out an old wooden box he had never seen before. His name was written across the top. Beneath it were 6 words. "Open only when the clock reaches 2:13. Daniel looked at his phone. The time was exactly 2:13. With trembling hands, he opened the box. Inside was a photograph of Daniel holding a newborn baby. The baby had Daniel's eyes. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten message. "You were warned. You chose anyway." Daniel's phone suddenly vibrated. The message read, "Dad, please don't make the same mistake." Then the screen went black. A baby began crying somewhere inside the apartment. Daniel slowly turned around. There had never been a baby in his apartment. The crying became louder. Closer. Then someone whispered from the darkness, "You finally opened the door." Daniel looked toward the entrance. The door was wide open, and standing on the other side was an older version of himself. His future self smiled and said, "Now we can finally talk."